All right, friends, our speaker today is one of our very own, of course, and she is a religious science minister. She's a wonderful storyteller and a wise woman. It's Reverend Jan Limberg Morgan. Go ahead, Jan.
Good morning. Well, I do have to tell you before I start that everything I've heard so far is totally in line with what I have to say. So if it sounds repetitive, I ask you to bear with me. I titled my talk today, Mission Possible. Do you remember that old Mission Impossible television show? Mission Possible, change the world. In 1976, for Christmas, my son gave me a book by Dr. Wayne Dyer, Your Erroneous Zones. I read that book all day, Christmas Day and the next day, much to the chagrin of my husband. And when I was through, I was a different person. Within 2 months, I had enrolled in college and was attending college, a lifetime dream that I didn't think could ever happen. 10 years later, in 1987, I walked into the religious science church of Salt Lake City and changed my life again because I knew I had come home. And a year later, I had the opportunity to be part of a team that made it possible for Dr. Wayne Dyer to come and speak to the people of Salt Lake City under the sponsorship of the Religious Science Church. It was held in the auditorium of a brand new high school so that it could accommodate all of those who wanted to come and hear him speak. And during the interval, I noticed his assistant frantically selling books, so busy, so many people lined up. And I approached her and said, Maya, may I come back there and help you? She gave me a long searching look and she said, get back here, I really need you. We formed a beautiful partnership, and together she handled the credit cards, I handled the selling. And I did that for the intermission and also after the program was over. I had the opportunity to talk at length with Wayne Dyer and express my appreciation for his books. Whenever he was in town, which was several times, and then when I moved to California, he came here to the Central Coast several times. And I also went to San Francisco and Los Angeles to assist Maya in the selling of books. At least that was the excuse. And that the friendship, that influence has stayed with me. In 1988, Dr. Dyer wrote an article in Time magazine, and he was addressing his questions to humanity of 2088, 100 years ahead. And he addressed 4 questions, and I'm going to go over them with you today. His first question is, have you learned that your body, that your humanity lies beyond the boundaries of your body? I'm reminded of a story of a community in South America which was experiencing a serious drought. There was insufficient water for the cattle, for the farmers' fields, and indeed for the people. And a state of crisis was declared. And it was suggested that a shaman who lived several mountain ranges away be asked to come and pray for the town. And when she arrived, she asked for a quiet place where she could be alone and undisturbed. On the 4th day of her visit, it started to rain. After she emerged from her quiet place, she was asked what she had done. And she said, when I came into your community, I could feel only chaos and dissension. And I needed to connect with my higher self, that I could see the truth of the balance and calm for the town and its people. Have you ever been in a place of high energy and really felt the need to get away by yourself? To go off into peace and silence? Well, I have always said, oh, I need to get away by myself. But that's not really what I've been doing. I've not been separating myself. I have been reconnecting with the non-physical me, merging back into our infinite non-physical being, reclaiming our wholeness. And I loved the fact that Brian alluded to this during his talk and prayer. Wayne's second question is, have we learned and adopted the concept that we are all connected? Also something that's been touched on this morning. I'd like to tell you one of my favorite stories. It's from Alan Cohen's book, A Deep Breath of Life. And Alan tells the story on himself and his friend Ernst. They are both playing in a band. They go out for pizza together. They shared the pain of divorces. And then they lost touch with each other for a while. And when they caught up with each other again, this was Ernst's story. He had spent some time in South America visiting a friend. And a neighbor had come to dinner and she had a headache. And Ernst had prayed with her and her headache disappeared. The next day, the neighbor came back with her daughter who had abdominal cramps. Ernst offered prayer and the young lady experienced relief. And the next night, all of the women's relatives showed up at the door. She had told them that he was a healer, and hoping to be of service, he prayed with all of them. The next day, half the town turned up for healing. After he returned home to the United States, he received a phone call from a town representative, and the people were willing to pay his airfare if he would return. So now he goes back regularly. And they fly him from town to town in a helicopter. And his prayers have had wonderful results. Ernst had discovered something that he loved to do, and he was very happy. But Alan's first thought, Ernst, last year a bass player, this year a saint? He had a hard time reconciling the two pictures. But he realized that he had a choice. He could negate the good that Ernst was doing, or he could rejoice in the blessings, because he recognized that the cup he measured Ernst by was the cup he would have to accept for himself. By keeping Ernst small, he kept himself small. And he decided it was a lot more fun if they could both be great. You know, we are all connected. We clearly know that, but we're not all the same. You know, our human body parts work in harmony for our greatest life. And our feet don't resent the brain that directs their path. And our hands don't resent our ears. And our ears don't wish they could do what the eyes do. Each part is unique. And each part contributes to the whole, what only it can contribute. You know, when we move our focus from our differences to our similarities, we no longer focus on appearance, but on how vital we are to each other. Hatred and prejudice gives way to a desire to dissolve anything that divides us. Instead of viewing ourselves as distant and apart from the suffering in the world, we can turn within, turn our awareness to a place for silent prayer for the suffering world. We can connect at a cosmic level. You know, Alan couldn't negate Ernst. He needed Ernst so that he could write about him in the way that only Alan could. You know, if we drop the labels, we're all citizens of the world. Without the labels, we begin to see God everywhere. In gardens and forests, in creatures and persons, and that inner peace envelops us. My connection to you is formless, dimensionless thought, as is your link to me, onto infinity. Wayne's third question is, do you realize what we focus on expands? And I believe that as a society, we are understanding that instead of being against war and conflict, we're shifting towards being for peace and cooperation. We're recognizing that a war on drugs and poverty and hunger and crime is not as effective as being for an enlightened, educated youth, a higher standard of living for everyone, and respect for each other's rights and possessions. Being against anything weakens us. Being for something empowers us. And the last question was, do you understand? You'll see it when you believe it. You know, there's the old adage, I'll believe that when I see it. The familiar doubting Thomas who needs concrete proof for everything. But history is filled with the Copernicuses and the Benjamin Franklins who said, what if? And then set out to find the answer. In the 20th century, we have Dr. Jonas Salk, who searched for the antidote to polio. He said, what if? And he found the solution. And right now, right here and now, we have Elon Musk, who questioned the single use of space rockets. Why must space travel be so expensive? Why throw away rockets and allow them to sink into the sea after one use? What if we could recycle them? And he was met with much negativity. But now he makes affordable space flights available to NASA and other companies because the rockets are reusable. You know, some of these people knew what they were searching for, and others set out to find out just what was in the unknown. And many of you, like me, knew that there had to be more to life than what we were living at the time. We knew innately that we were more than these physical bodies, that we were connected to an ineffable, all-encompassing power. We knew that an expansive, empowered life was available for us. I'm sure you've heard the story of the 100th monkey. And I am going to review it right now. For 30 years, the Japanese monkey, Macaca fuscata, was observed in the wild. And in 1952, on the island of Kushima, scientists provided monkeys with sweet potatoes, which had been dropped into sand. Now, the monkeys loved the taste of the sweet potatoes, but they didn't like the sand. And an 18-year-old female, Emo, solved the problem by washing her potatoes in a stream. And she taught this trick to her mother. And her playmates copied her, and then they taught their mothers. And in the autumn of 1958, 6 years later, a startling thing happened. The number of monkeys who washed their potatoes was unknown, but just let's say it was 99. On this particular day, autumn day, one more monkey learned to wash their potatoes. And then it happened. By that evening, every one of the monkeys in that tribe were washing their potatoes. The added energy of the 100th monkey created an ideological breakthrough. But the most surprising observation at this point was that the habit of washing the potatoes jumped over the sea. Colonies of monkeys on other islands and on the mainland, the troop of monkeys at, let me see if I can say this, Takasaki Yama, began washing their potatoes. Thus, when a certain critical number achieves awareness, this new awareness is communicated from mind to mind. Now, the exact number may vary. The 100th monkey phenomenon means that when only a limited number of people know of a new way, it remains the conscious property of these people. However, there is a point that if only one more person tunes into the new awareness, a field is strengthened so that this awareness reaches almost everyone. Now, experiments have been done at Duke University, and they've repeatedly demonstrated that individuals can communicate private information to each other, even though they're in different places. We now know that the strength of this extrasensory communication can be amplified to a powerfully effective level when the consciousness of the 100th person is added. In the current issue of Unity magazine, Ken Wilber is interviewed by Katie Coons. I'm sure a number of you have read this. Now, Wilber is a renowned philosopher and author, and he's in many ways way above my head. And he has proposed that when 10% of the US population embraces the end of the current polarization, we'll reach a tipping point, that point of the 100th monkey, wherein a new model of consciousness will spread to the population as a whole. And when Katie Coons asked him what that percentage was now, he said somewhere between 5 and 8%. Now, I'm going to read to you from the magazine so you will get it from the source. Katie Coons, are you saying this polarization stage is inevitable, but it's okay because we're headed towards this integral phase? Ken Wilber, that's exactly correct. It's unfortunate in a certain sense that we're at this polarized stage, but if you can just hang on, it's good news, because when we get to that integral stage, those ideas will permeate the whole culture. Most people become much more comfortable when they hear those ideas. And Katie Coons says, how long could it take us to get to that 10%? This might be something we see within a few years, and it's going to be an extraordinary transformation, not only for our country, but for the world. We'll have a more global perspective, focusing on holistic, intuitive thinking, and on harmony, compassion, and cooperation. And that is the end of the article. You know, for over 40 years, I have claimed that Wayne Dyer changed my life, but that's not true. Wayne wrote a book, his first of many bestsellers. My son chose to give me that book for Christmas. I chose to read that book almost nonstop over 2 days. Within 2 months, I was enrolled in college and attending. I saw it when I believed it. I changed my life because I saw it when I believed it. How many of us choose to play small by modestly giving credit to others for our own successes? You know, my message to my friend, Dr. Wayne, is that 100 years is longer than is needed. He left this earth suit almost 7 years ago. However, I have no doubt that he already knows what's unfolding. And I have no doubt that we innately know also. When we understand that we are vastly expansive beyond this body, when we know that we are connected, as millions across this country do know, when we're confident that what we focus on expands, when we have no doubt that we'll see the changing of the world consciousness, when we believe it's happening, then we will stand firmly in a world that has shifted from chaos to wholeness, where consciousness is raised to the 4th and 5th dimension. So I invite you to join hands with me, and together, let's change the world. Namaste.